Hi everyone, I'm Shelley Cavanna of Cora's Quilts, and I am so excited to be here kicking off our Secret Garden Sampler Quilt Along.
I love the thrill of beginning a brand new project, and I wanted to take a few minutes to share some important information about our class and what you can do to prepare for it before we start sewing together. We are so excited to be partnering with C&T Publishing's Creative Spark online class platform to bring you the Secret Garden Sampler online class. By the end of our Quilt Along program, this class will feature 12 in-depth videos exploring each of the blocks featured in my Secret Garden Sampler. Our popular Block of the Month format shares monthly videos, providing opportunities to practice a whole variety of quilting techniques in small doses, with the bonus of a newly finished quilt with the 12th lesson. Enrollment in the Secret Garden Sampler course with Creative Spark doesn't expire, so you'll be able to watch the lessons on demand and work at a pace that is comfortable for you. If you have questions or need clarification on any of the techniques, you'll be able to connect with me and your fellow samplers in our private and easy-to-access discussion rooms. Our Creative Sparks class gives you two options to enroll. If you're sewing with fabric from your stash and you need the quilt pattern, be sure to enroll in the Class Plus pattern option. If you already have the pattern from your local quilt shop or through a Block of the Month fabric shipment program, then feel free to choose the Class Without Pattern option. We know that many of you have chosen our Secret Garden Sampler quilt as your 2024 Quilt Along project with your quilty friends, with the hopes of finishing your quilt by the end of the year. To help you rock that goal, we're kicking off our Quilt Along by sharing the videos for our first 3 blocks in our Secret Garden Sampler this month. From there, we'll release 1 video a month so that by December, you'll have finished all of your blocks and you'll be ready to assemble your quilt. You can stop by our Quilt Along webpage if you'd like to see our official schedule. But also keep in mind that we have loads of quilters who are sewing along and they're beginning their projects at all different times. So don't stress if you're already a few blocks in, or if you feel like you're starting a little late, or even if you feel like you've fallen behind. Your Creative Spark course content doesn't expire, and it's never too late to join us. So just enjoy the process, work at a pace that's comfortable and enjoyable for you, and simply share your block photos as you complete them. Speaking of sharing photos, there are several ways that you can connect with your fellow samplers. On the Creative Spark platform, your enrollment in our course gives you access to share your progress with our private Secret Garden community. The community also gives you a chance to chat and connect not only with your classmates, but also directly with me. If you're a Facebook user, you can share your photos in 2 different Quilt Along groups, our Cora's Quilts Quilt Along group and the C&T Makers Mingle group. You can also share your photos with the world on Instagram using hashtag CQ Secret Garden Sampler and hashtag Cora's Quilts. Be sure to tag us at Cora's Quilts so that we can see your photos too. In both your course welcome letter and on our Quilt Along website, we've shared a materials list which includes all the fabric you'll need to make the entire quilt top, including the binding. Please keep in mind that this yardage assumes that the fabric will be split into monthly segments, so you can expect to have some fabric left over at the end. Each monthly module relies on its own materials list, so you won't have to remember to set aside fabric from previous months to use with future blocks. When you begin cutting your fabric each month, we recommend that you always look through your scraps and cut pieces from any remaining strips left over from previous blocks before cutting a new strip to make the most economical use of your scraps. Speaking of scraps, we designed this quilt to have a scrappy feel to it. So if you happen to make a mistake or run out of a print that we've suggested, rest assured that there will be enough fabric left over at the end of our quilt to fix it. I recommend for mistakes that you set that block aside, finish piecing all the rest of your blocks, and then be creative in repurposing your leftovers. If this wait-and-see philosophy sounds stressful, then you also might want to purchase some oopsie fat quarters to have on hand just in case. While our 24-inch blocks all rely on yardage, many of the smaller 12-inch blocks can be pieced using fat quarters along with some background fabric yardage. If you've joined our Secret Garden online course, then you can find a chart detailing the fabric requirements by month in your welcome letter. If you've fallen in love with the fabrics in our sample quilt, I am really excited to share that the fabric is being reprinted, which means we'll be able to offer a second cohort of our Secret Garden Sampler Block of the Month program. It's scheduled to begin later this spring and includes 12 monthly shipments. Each shipment includes the exact fabrics that we've used in the sample quilt so that you can recreate your own blocks. These kits ship free to US mailing addresses each month, and they ship free to Canadian mailing addresses each quarter. Space is very limited, so stop by our Quilt Along homepage as soon as possible if this is something you're interested in. For those of you who are already receiving your monthly fabric shipments, I'm excited to share that we'll also be restocking our 108-inch wide backing fabric, which is a supersized version of our main Secret Garden print. The blooms in this print are around 4 to 6 inches tall and makes it a perfect way to finish off the back of your quilt. And because it's 108-inch wide fabric, you won't have to sew that dreaded backing seam. As soon as you've finished your quilt top, you'll be ready to make your quilt sandwich and start quilting. We do have some additional Quilt Along resources that I'd love for you to take a look at before we start sewing together. The first is our Quilty Mise en Place video, which shares my 5 steps to take to prepare your workspace, your sewing machine, and your fabric before starting any new quilt project. I like to stay super organized by meticulously labeling all of my fabric as I cut it. In fact, each piece in our cutting instructions is assigned a letter of the alphabet, and we use these letters to identify that piece in our construction images and instructions. To help keep your own project similarly organized, you can download a set of free printable letter and number labels in the resources section of our Quilt Along website. And if you'd like a little bit more information about how to read our patterns, we've shared a free guide for you to download there as well. I am a bit of a minimalist when it comes to quilting notions, but I have shared my list of must-have and nice-to-have tools for this project. Keep in mind that the majority of this quilt is pieced using squares and rectangles, along with a combination of my favorite traditional and stitch and flip quilting techniques. We will be working with a few triangle shapes, but we'll be piecing those blocks larger than needed and trimming them down to the perfect size. This project doesn't require any specialty tools or rulers. It doesn't use templates of any sort, and it doesn't use any foundation or paper piecing techniques. The final resource I want to share is some thoughts on pre-washing and starching your fabric. We've left you a link to my video discussion, and I just want to let you know at the onset of our program that I am a huge fan of starching fabric. I find that it increases my accuracy and makes the fabric so much easier to work with. Our material lists for each block are fairly generous, and we didn't encounter any issues with starching our fabric and having it shrink beyond a usable size. If you're worried about your fabric shrinking due to starching or pre-washing though, then again, it might be a good idea to have a little bit of extra fabric on hand just in case. You can always repurpose it for another project if you don't end up using it for this one. I know that we've shared loads of information in today's video. You can revisit all of the details on our Quilt Along homepage and also by logging into your class on the Creative Spark platform and checking out the chapter that introduces this project.
I'm so excited to start sewing together, and I can't wait to see all your beautiful blocks.